What's up, comic book fans? And welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me. And today, we got the most violent Wolverine story ever told with part 1 of the Sabertooth War. Now, this story, equipped with a full parental advisory tag on it. That's how brutal this thing is. But this story takes place after X-Force number 50, which hasn't yet been released as of the time of this recording, and before the fall of the House of X and rise of the Powers of X first issues. So previously, Victor Creed, aka Sabertooth, had been a prisoner of Krakoa, thrown into the pit for breaking rule number 1, to kill no humans. But before the fall of X, Sabertooth had escaped and then teamed up with alternate universe versions of himself and managed to steal an Orchid spacecraft. Now Sabertooth has nothing but revenge on his mind, and with this being the birthday of one Wolverine, Sabertooth has a hell of a party planned for him. So if you're ready to see what Sabertooth has planned for these mutants of Krakoa, and what makes this the most violent Wolverine story ever told, not to mention that special birthday present that he has planned for Logan, let's get it. So when the issue kicks off, we're taken to Orchid Station number 5, which is now under the command of Sabertooth. And we see Wolverine in full hunting mode as Wolverine begins to creep up on Sabertooth while he seems to be in the middle of demolishing someone. Then, as we see Wolverine go in for the strike, we see that the person being torn apart is Cyclops. And as Wolverine lunges at Sabertooth, he turns around just in time to catch Wolverine in midair by the throat. Then we see that this isn't Wolverine at all. It's in fact a camouflage version of Sabertooth from Earth 33441, as Victor Creed acknowledges that this camo version is even able to match the scent of Wolverine and probably has his thoughts too. But then he says that this will definitely let him slip past Krakoa's defenses long enough to get them on the island. So then we see the other Sabertooths. There's the Earth 203 version, that's a Cap variant, and the Sentinel of Tyranny. Then there's the Sabertooth of Earth 1912, the Savage Sabertooth. And last but not least, there's the Earth 12 version, aka Pretty Boy, Beauty and the Beast in one package. And guys, for the sake of this video, I'm gonna have to nickname these dudes because I'm not gonna keep saying the Sabertooth of this Earth or that Earth. So for now, they'll be Cap Tooth, Savage Tooth, Pretty Tooth, and Camo Tooth. But we then find out from Cap Tooth that these X-Men are from other dimensions. So that Cyclops we saw getting torn apart wasn't our Earth 616 Cyclops. But then we find out that these guys are ready to see what this Krakoa hype is all about that Victor Creed's been filling them in on. And they're absolutely ready to go and handle some business. So Pretty Tooth yells to Creed that they're ready. But Creed's the leader of this group and he yells to him that he'll be the one to tell him when he's ready. And then he tells him that he's ready. So then we transition over to the North Pole and the new base that the mutants have been using since the events of the recent Hellfire Gala called the Greenhouse. And we see Black Tom Cassidy speaking telepathically with Kid Omega when Tom senses that there's some mutants over on the island of Krakoa, but it isn't safe there, and Stark Sentinels surround that island. So he tells Kid Omega that he's gonna send Logan to take care of it, but Kid Omega offers to take point on it. But Black Tom tells him that although Logan can't show it, he thinks of Kid Omega as one of his cubs, and that he'd skewer Tom if he'd let the kid go alone. But Kid Omega, he wants to prove himself, and he's a bit power cocky, so he convinces Tom to let him go. So now we see the Sabertooth clique in the Orchid shuttle as they're approaching Krakoa, and Cap-Tooth lets them know that he's not picking up any mutant signatures on the island, except for the island itself. And one of these headless drones chimes in that the island is also surrounded. So Camo Tooth suggested they go in cloaked, and once again Creed tells him that he'll be the one to give the orders. And then he tells him to go in cloaked. This guy. But before they land, they all use some personal cloaking devices so they're not individually detected by any of the Sentinels, and then they land on the island. Now Victor Creed, he wasn't around for the whole Fall of X and Hellfire Gala. He had been traveling the multiverse at the time. So as he walks the island, he notices that something serious must have went down there, and the mutants must have fled in a hurry. So now he continues to search the island, and he's starting to feel cheated out of his revenge. But then Tooth notices that a powerful mutant is approaching. So they figure if they can't kill all the mutants, they can at least kill one. Then we see Kid Omega approaching, and so do the Sentinels. But Kid Omega is here to rescue whatever mutants are on the island. At least that's what he thinks. So he tries to fight off these Sentinels, but these Sentinels have been leveled up, so he's having a hard time. Then he notices Wolverine on the island, and he immediately assumes that Black Tom Cassidy called him in anyway, even though he asked him not to. So this Wolverine tells the kid to come get him out of here. And as Kid Omega approaches, he realizes at the last minute that that's not Wolverine. But it's too late as Tooth catches him, and he puts his claws right through the kid's neck, and then beams him back onto the Orchid space station. And if you're a Kid Omega fan, you might want to turn away now as we see the Sabretooth clique just tearing into Kid Omega as the headless drones cheer them on in the background. Yikes. R.I.P. Quentin Quire. So then we transition back to the North Pole, and it's now almost midnight as we see Dakin, or Fang as he's currently going by, and he's standing outside in the snow by a fire with another mutant who I'm not really sure who that is. But then we see a caribou dropped off at the feet of Fang, followed by Wolverine, who snuck up on him saying that he could have killed him before he even knew he was there. So Fang's response to Logan is that we're at the end of the world and nobody knows to look for them there. But Logan tells him never to think that way, and there's a lot of folks depending on Fang to keep them safe. Plus, he simply doesn't want anything to happen to his son, which both surprises and pleases Fang because him and his pops have been through a lot together. And if you don't know, this is Logan's actual biological son from an old relationship in Japan with a woman named Itsu. But then Logan tells him to skin and cut up the caribou for him, and he'll be back to bring it to the mess hall for everybody. Then Fang asks Logan to stick around for a few minutes since it's almost midnight and Logan's birthday. But Logan keeps on moving and he warns him to stay alert. Then we see Logan making his rounds on the base, making sure everything is all clear, as he then begins to think about Sabretooth and all the other things that the mutants have been through recently, as he tries to protect what's left. But then he stops to talk with Sage, asking her if she's heard anything back from Kid Omega yet, to which she responds that she hasn't, but it's not uncommon with Quentin because communication isn't one of his strong points. Then Logan asks her how everything is looking around the perimeter of the base, and she basically lets him know that everything is all good. She's got organic sensors out for miles, and nobody's getting close to the greenhouse without Black Tom knowing about it. But Logan tells her that the wind and the snow is only going to get worse out there with a blizzard rolling in as he walks away. But then he continues to think about Sabretooth and his tradition of bringing him pain for his birthday, as we then see the Sabretooth clique and their headless drones who seem to have found that hidden base now. Then we see Creed activating some sort of lantern that I'm thinking that maybe it has the power of Kid Omega in it, but this lantern then fires a pink beam that seems to affect the minds of Black Tom and Sage. But then we move over to Laura Kinney, aka X-23, and Domino, who are both going over some specs on the Stark Sentinels, when Laura, who's a clone from Logan's DNA, so she's more like him than Fang, but she stops and then she tells Logan that she knows he's there, and then he creeps on around the corner. So she asks him, why is he creeping around? And he tells her that he's just doing his rounds. But then he tells her that when he left X-Force, he knows that she probably didn't want the job because of him, but she did it anyway and saved a whole lot of people. So now she's skeptical and she's wondering where all this is coming from. But then he tells her that if something were to happen to him, then she's got to be the one to take his place and do a better job than he did. So she tells him that he's being weird, and then she turns around and grabs a birthday present that she had got for him. But when she turns back around, he's gone again. So then we go back outside, and Fang is finishing up skinning that caribou while he's talking to this other mutant about his relationship with Logan and all the things that they've been through. And that now, two of them, they need each other. But as he's talking with this dude, he notices that the dude's not responding to him. And when he turns to him, we see the claws of Sabretooth ripping through this guy's chest from behind him. And then Sabretooth appears and just rips this guy in half. And now Fang is surrounded by these Sabretooths and drones as we then see Fang and Sabretooth lunge at each other. And an absolutely brutal fight breaks out between them. And then we see Logan, who's done making his rounds, and he's come back for that caribou like he said he would. But as he gets closer, man, y'all, he's absolutely devastated. As he then sees the words "Happy Birthday" spelled out in the snow with the body parts of Fang and the other guy. Jeez. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the issue. What's up, comic book fans? And welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me. And today, we got part 2 of the Sabretooth War with Wolverine, issue number 42. And if you thought part 1 left bodies, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because, man, this series is so dope. Now, if you need to get caught up with part 1, I place a card right at the top of this video and a playlist as well at the end of the video. But just to give you guys a quick refresher, we last saw Sabretooth and his crew of alternate universe Sabretooths travel to Krakoa with revenge on the brain. But the mutants had all long since vanished from that island. They were, however, able to catch and kill Kid Omega and find a new mutant base called the Greenhouse and use what appeared to be Kid Omega's power to put both Black Tom and Sage into a sort of trance-like state, which pretty much nullified the Greenhouse's defense system. Then we saw Sabretooth brutally dismember Fang, the biological son of Logan, and then spell out "Happy Birthday" in the snow using the body parts of Fang, leaving it for Logan to see right at the start of his birthday. So if you're ready to see how Logan responds, then you know what time it is. Let's get it. So when this issue picks up, we met with Logan and Victor Creed face to face after Logan was left devastated by his birthday greeting, as Logan is now in full-on berserker rage mode, and Creed begins to taunt him, and he tells Logan that, "I know you want blood for blood and to pay me back so bad, but it ain't gonna happen." While Logan, he's straight ripping through these headless Sabretooth drones. But then Creed lets him know that he made him a promise before they tossed him into that pit back in Krakoa, a promise of pain. And he's here to collect on that promise, as we see Logan still tearing through more and more of these drones, but he's eventually overwhelmed and held down, while Creed is using one of Fang's claws to pick his teeth. But then Creed lets Logan know that his pain is only about to get worse from here, and there's nothing that he could do about it, because Creed wants Logan to suffer, and he plans to go inside the greenhouse and kill every last team member. Then he lets Logan know that he's been busy. He traveled to a bunch of worlds and killed a bunch of alternate universe Wolverines while enlisting an army along the way. He was also able to collect a few things in the process. In one world, Omega Red had adamantium tentacles, to which he has a drone bring them out. And then he tells the drones to use these tentacles to string up Logan. But Pretty Two, he isn't feeling this plan, and he tells Creed no. He wants Creed to just finish him off right here, right now. But Creed, this guy is stubborn. And since he's in charge, he puts Pretty Tooth in his place, and he tells him that he wants the Runt to live a little while longer. Nobody knows that we're here, so we swarm in and we kill them all. I want the Runt to hear the screams of the dying. I want him to smell the torn livers and bloody entrails of his friends. I want to break them. Then we transition to the inside of the greenhouse with X-23 and Domino, who's still going over those Sentinel designs. When Domino then gives Laura a hard time about her gift wrapping a present for Logan, and then tells Laura that it feels weird making plans for the future, when not long ago she wasn't sure they had a future. But then she looks up and she sees Logan. And she tells Laura that she could give him his gift now. And when she tries to walk past Logan to allow them some alone time, he straight up knocks Domino out cold. And then he transforms back into Camo Tooth. And he asks Laura, whose face does she want to see as she dies? But we know Laura Kinney is not to be trifled with, and she starts kicking the crap out of Camo 2. I mean, she's going berserk on this dude, and he's got no shot against her one-on-one, and she realizes that she's fighting a version of Creed, but not quite sure, because he's not like the one that she's used to. And then he lets her know that he's one of many, and as she goes in for the kill, both Pretty Tooth and Savage Tooth jump in to attack her, and now she's outnumbered. Then we see the control room with Black Tom and Sage as Laura tries to contact them and let them know that they're under attack, but neither of them respond because they're still in that trance as we see then Sabertooth drones now ascending into the control room with them. Then we see Colossus in his room, asleep in bed, as Cap-Tooth and a couple of the drones come and go to attack him while he's asleep. But he hears them, and he's able to activate his metal skin just in the nick of time. Then we go back to Logan, who's outside still and strung up by these adamantium tentacles. And all he can do is hang there and think about everyone he's failed and how he wishes that he could just swallow their screams and make them his own. As we then see Creed, who along with his batch of drones is just demolishing all the mutants trying to scramble to save their lives. And it's just an absolute bloodbath. As Creed is just tearing body parts from these guys who just absolutely never stood a chance. Then he sees one of the little female mutants crying, and as he goes to try to end her, she's saved by Aurora, who flies in and grabs this little girl, along with Northstar, who is able to save another one. And they run away from that jam. But it's too cold for them to run outside because it's negative 40 degrees out there. So they decide to go into the control room and fight back. Now, when they get in the control room, they're just in time as 3 drones are in there and just about to kill Black Tom and Sage while they're still in their trance. And Northstar and Aurora are able to save them and take out these drones. Then we go back over to Logan, who's still hanging there, as he's now thinking to himself that he could hear bones breaking and lungs choking on blood. He could smell the slaughter fest, but he could feel it too, like a sickness. Resurrection is over with. There's no coming back. Creed already took Omega and Fang, and now everybody in the greenhouse is next, including Laura. But ooh, don't y'all mess with Laura. As Logan thinks about her possibly getting killed, he can't bear it anymore, and since his skeleton is adamantium, but his skin isn't, he rips one arm from the tentacle, severing his hand. And with that now free nub, he's able to pop his claws and cut off both of his feet, followed by the other arm. And then he drops to the ground a bloody stump. Then we go back to Laura, as she's still managing to hold her own against these 3 versions of Sabertooth, while Pretty Tooth is now venting to Savage Tooth about Creed letting Logan live and sending him in there to deal with this. The Savage Tooth then jumps on Laura's back and tries to rip her face apart, when Savage Tooth is then blasted in the face and knocked to the ground by Domino, who's now awake and back in the fight. But not for long, as Camo Tooth then kicks Domino in the face and back to the ground. I guess Domino's probability powers keep her from getting killed in this fight by keeping her unconscious. But then as Pretty Tooth checks on Savage Tooth, while still blaming Creed for their situation, Laura then puts a set of claws right through his ear and out the other. And then with her other set of claws, straight up slices his head clean off. Man, y'all, X-23 is so freaking dope, it's crazy. But then Savage Tooth kicks the feet out from under Laura, knocking her to the ground, and then both Savage Tooth and Camo Tooth dive after her. Then we go back to the control room, and Aurora is able to awaken Black Tom and Sage out of their trance. And then they let them know that the base is under attack. Dozens are dead, and there's close to 50 soldiers under their roof. And now a groggy Sage is like, who, Orcus? And Aurora and Northstar let her know that it's worse than that. It's a multitude of Sabertooths, that he somehow replicated himself. But now that Tom and Sage are awake, the greenhouse defense system is now back online. And y'all, this is where things really get dope. Sage then calls up the genetic profile of Creed using the control center. In time, he gets into his chair where he's able to communicate with the greenhouse. Then Sage tells him to treat this genetic signature like a virus that the body of the greenhouse needs to destroy and expel him like a swarm of white blood cells. And then we see that's exactly what happens as the branches start snatching up Sabertooth drones and even Captooth, then begin to coil them up and keep tightening their grip until these Sabertooths just pop. They're torn apart and dead. They even managed to cut through the leg of Victor Creed, who then retreats with the rest of the drones. As we then see Logan, who's made his way through the hallway and is in full rage mode, as he's met with a few drones and he wants blood. But then they're snatched up by the branches as well and are squeezed until they pop. Then Logan quickly makes his stubby way to where Laura and Domino were, hoping that he's not too late as he yells, "Laura! Laura! Laura!" And as we see his gift-wrapped and bloody birthday present, that's the end of the issue. What's up, comic book fans? And welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me. And today, we got more of the Sabertooth War. This time by way of Wolverine number 43. And I'm gonna let you guys know now that by the end of this issue, Wolverine and crew are gonna get some extra help with their so-called Sabertooth problem. And if you guys need to get caught up with this war, I'm gonna put a card up at the top of the screen, and there'll be a link to the playlist at the end of this video. But as always, here's a quick little refresher for you guys. After recruiting alternate universe versions of himself, Sabertooth and his crew decided to go back to Krakoa for some revenge on Wolverine and the rest of the mutants. But when they arrived, they found that everyone had already fled from Krakoa. But unfortunately for Quentin Quire, aka Kid Omega, when he volunteered to travel back to Krakoa on a rescue mission, he was caught and torn apart by these vicious Sabertooths. Sabertooth then was able to use some new stolen Orchis tech to locate the rest of the mutants at their new greenhouse base in the North Pole, where Wolverine's son Fang became another one of their victims. Then, as Wolverine had gotten strung up with adamantium by these Sabertooths, the greenhouse quickly became overrun. But not wanting to wait around for Laura Kinney to be the next victim, Logan took a page from the Saw movies and he cut his limbs to escape. But when he got back into the greenhouse, the issue ended as he screamed for Laura. So if you guys want to find out what happened with Laura, then you know what time it is. Let's get it. So the issue starts off with Sabertooth, who's reminiscing about the old days when he and Logan were Team X teammates. Because like he says, nostalgia is a hell of a drug and pretty much the only one that he isn't immune to. And here's where we kind of get an idea of what it is that he's after when he says that sometimes you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Then we transition to current day as he's getting chewed out by Savage Tooth for the deaths of Pretty Tooth and Cap Tooth. And then he's challenged for supremacy by Camo Tooth, who ends up getting his ass handed to him by Creed. All while we see an imprisoned Laura Kinney onlooking and taking some mental notes. So after the fight with Camo Tooth, Creed heads to his quarters, and that's when we see him talking to that lantern type device that we saw him using earlier in the series that helped him locate the greenhouse. And we find out that someone is in that lantern, at least a part of someone. Because when Creed asks it to show him Logan, and then he asks this lantern about Logan's state of mind and how he's feeling, the lantern replies, "You mean killing his son and beheading me? I don't understand what's happened to me." And then Sabertooth tells him that, well, technically speaking, you're dead. But Orchis was experimenting with ways to make use of mutant components. Imagine going into war with Cyclops' head mounted on your tank. And the tech itself limits your autonomy. I've had time to learn how it works, and you're my beta test. Now answer my questions. And we then find out that it's the head of Kid Omega inside of it. As Sabretooth says to him that you can read his mind. Is he gonna bring the troops or come by himself? And Quentin tells him that he'll come alone. He won't risk anyone else. And this pleases Sabretooth, who then decides to get him a little cat nap. Pun intended. Meanwhile, as Quentin's head goes to sleep, a psychic signal is sent out. Then we see that it's sent to Oya of the Exiles, who immediately sees everything that happened to Quentin. So then she runs to go see Third Eye, who's able to decipher what Oya just experienced, and he lets her know that it wasn't a dream, and your friend is dead, but a part of him still lingers. Then he uses his ability to project what happened for Necra to see, but she's kind of hesitant about acting on it. Then we transition back to the Orchid space station with Savage Tooth and Camo Tooth after Camo Tooth's ass whooping at the hands of Victor Creed. And here's where Laura Kinney tries to get into the heads of these variants by calling them betas. But Savage Tooth, she ain't having it. So she has one of the headless drones gas Laura. And we find out about another piece of Orchid's tech called the Essence of Leech. And if you don't know, Leech is a mutant with the power to temporarily negate the powers of another powered being. So Orchid, having turned his powers into a gas, man, y'all, that's pretty sick. And as Laura is now feeling the effects of this gas, Savage Tooth goes inside and straight up rips off Laura's jaw and then takes out her tongue. Ouch. I guess we see now why she's the savage one. But then she tells Camo Tooth that although she couldn't stand to listen to X-23 any longer, she kinda was right. You and me are playing low status, and I'm sick of it. All us Sabretooths were hunted across dimensions, captured, many killed, then turned into those headless drones. All by one man who holds a real grudge against our dear leader. And y'all, she's talking about Gren Creed, the son of Victor Creed. But Camo Tooth reminds her about the events of Sabretooth and the Exiles #5, where they ejected Graydon into another dimension, but they don't know where. And Savage Tooth decides that they need to find a way to track him. But Camo then tells her that Graydon wants to kill all of us. He's like a bomb that could go off without warning. And she replies, we just have to plant it right. Then don't stick around for when it explodes. But let's keep this between us. Then we go back to the Exiles, and they're all discussing what to do about Sabretooth's resurfacing. And Necra then reveals the killing seed given to her by Doug Ramsey when they had escaped the pit. He had told her to use it on Sabretooth, but at the time she hesitated because she didn't know what it would do. But now, she doesn't care anymore. And she says to the rest of them, he's got an army, but we've got a team. The Exiles are going to war. So now we transition back to Victor Creed as he's dreaming again about the good old days teamed up with Logan, where it's revealed that he wants to break down who Logan is now and get him back to the real Logan, the one who loved war. But then he's awakened by the head of Kid Omega, who's having trouble hiding his thoughts in this new state that he's in, even while he's sleeping. And Creed can now see that he's trying to keep a secret, but he can't help but to project it. And it appears to be a map, as a sleeping Quentin is just spilling all the beans. And he says that this would cook Logan's goose for sure. Then he tries to quiet himself from snitching, but now it's too late as Creed sees this map and he grins from ear to ear and says, looks like we're going on a treasure hunt. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the issue. What's up, comic book fans, and welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ what they call me, and today we got part 4 of the Sabretooth War with Wolverine issue number 44. And is Kid Omega kind of still alive? By the end of this, you'll see why I ask, but if you need to get caught up on how we got here, then I place a card up top to the Sabretooth War playlist, as well as a link at the end of this video. But the last issue focused on what happened with Victor Creed after he and his team assaulted the greenhouse base. So this issue focuses on what happened with Logan afterwards. So if you guys are ready to see if he goes full berserker, then you guys know what time it is. Let's get it. So we picked this issue up with North Star and Aurora putting Logan's limbs back together after he went all Saw mode last issue. And he's trying to push Aurora to rush through it so he can hurry up and go on the hunt for Victor. But Aurora is still dealing with the trauma from the massacre. So Logan's kind of being a bit of an ass because the death of Fang is really hitting her hard. And as she sews Logan back together, she hopes that he can feel some kind of pain too. Because if he's already moved on and healed by Fang's death, then it's not fair that that part of him heals fast too. She thinks that Logan owes Fang his grief. But she finishes stitching up Logan, and just in time too, because Domino and Colossus let them know that they've got a runner. Then we see that Captooth actually survived the greenhouse attack after originally being thought as dead, and he made a break for it as soon as he healed up enough. We can also see that he's pissed that the other Sabretooths abandoned him. So after a few hours, Domino, Colossus, and Wolverine are seen skiing the mountain searching for Captooth, and they come across a skinned polar bear carcass. So they decide to spread out and search the area. And just as they start to spread out, Captooth lunges at Domino from above in full polar bear cape, slamming her to the ground and taking her gun. And if I'm not mistaken, that's about the third time during this war that Domino has gotten knocked out. I guess her powers over luck make her get knocked out instead of getting killed. Hey. But as Captooth grabs her gun, he lets it rip at Colossus and Wolverine, who decide to use their famous fastball special, and Colossus hurls Wolverine right at Captooth. And when Logan gets him to the ground, he goes straight berserk mode on him, stabbing the hell out of this variant. He's taking out all his anger on him for killing his son. But they still need this guy alive so they can interrogate him. So Colossus is forced to hold Logan back. So when they get back, it's on Sage to interrogate him. But Logan knows that this guy isn't gonna talk. So Logan threatens to finish gutting him if she doesn't use her telepathy instead. But Colossus decides to take Logan for a walk so he can calm down, because Sage is trying everything she can. She even gives Captooth a stiff left across the face when he continues to taunt Logan. But now Sage needs to take a break, because nothing that she's tried is working, and she tells Domino that her telepathy isn't strong enough to break through whatever walls he has built up. But Phoebe, one of the Stepford Cuckoos, comes in and offers to try her hand at it. She's pissed about the death of Kid Omega, who she had been dating, so she's got no problems jumping into this guy's head. Meanwhile, we see Logan, who's still thinking about what Aurora said earlier about him moving on so quickly, and he reveals that he never heals from those type of scars. He carries all those deaths inside of him. But then he begins to wonder if he's brought this on himself, that even though Sabretooth has brought him all of this pain, maybe Logan has caused just as much of it on his own. And he might actually be the reason that Creed is out for blood right now, even though that doesn't excuse Creed. But then Logan makes his way to that birthday gift from Laura, and he finally decides to open it. And in it is a World's Best Dad mug and a birthday message. And it gives Logan the feels right now. Then we transition back to Phoebe as she gets into the head of Captooth, and she senses another presence inside of him. Some other psionic power, but she can see that he was recruited by Victor along with the other Sabretooths from other dimensions. But as she walks through his mind, she's met with another Creed variant, what looks to be a Sabretooth Loki variant, who sees and goes to attack Phoebe. As he grabs her, he tells her that they are hypocrites, filthy hypocrites. You had it coming. You deserved it. Your punishment has just begun. And then we can see that this variant is also speaking through Captooth's physical voice as well. And now Sage can sense another force. That it's kind of like some kind of psychic malware, like a cyanide pill in case of interrogation. and she can sense that it's gonna kill Phoebe, whose nose starts to bleed. So Domino, she can't stand to watch anymore, and she pulls out her gun and pops Cap-Tooth right in the head. But as Phoebe is released from the mind of Cap-Tooth, she now senses Quentin Quire, who comes to her in a vision, screaming to her that he's sorry, that he made me do it. But Domino and Sage can't see it, so they think she's hallucinating. But Kid Omega, he asks for her to send help, to send Wolverine. And Wolverine, he doesn't need much to be pushed to go, and he boards a jet despite warnings from Sage of not even knowing if what Phoebe saw was true, and it being too risky because Krakoa is surrounded by Stark Sentinels. If he's going there, then he's gonna need a team, but Logan doesn't want to see anybody else get hurt, so he's going at it alone. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of this issue. What's up, comic book fans, and welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me, and today we got part 5 of the Saber-Tooth War with issue 45 of Wolverine. And this series has been absolute fire so far. And by the end of this video, Victor Creed just might get that Logan team up that he's been wanting so bad. With these last 2 issues building up to and converging in this issue from 2 different perspectives. So if you guys need to get caught up with how we got to this moment, then I'll leave a card at the top of the screen and a link at the end of this video to the Saber-Tooth War playlist. But if you guys are ready to find out what happens in the next chapter of this brutal and classic Wolverine and Saber-Tooth War, then you know what time it is. Let's get it. So we start this issue with Victor Creed, and he's carrying the head of Quentin Quire, aka Kid Omega, throughout the island of Krakoa to search for the secrets buried there. And even though the Stark Sentinels surround the island, Creed used an Orchid ship with cloaking to fly right past them. But on the island, Creed remembers back to being trapped in a pit underneath it, when Kid Omega then taunts him for this memory, which kinda shocks Creed, because he didn't think that Kid Omega's head could still hear his thoughts. But Kid Omega lets him know that even in this current state, he's still one of the most powerful psychics there is. Then they arrive at a hill, and Kid Omega starts to go to work. And he uses his telepathy to reveal a hidden doorway in the hill, which they end up walking through. Meanwhile, back on Station 5, Camo Tooth and Savage Tooth are still plotting to go retrieve the son of Victor Creed, Gren Creed. And Camo is worried that Victor might find them out, but Savage Tooth assures him that Victor is away on the island for now, so they have some time to themselves. But she needs Camo to go through the multi-dimensional portal because Graydon has already fought with Savage Tooth, so he'd instantly recognize her easily. Meaning Camo needs to put on a different face, so he decides to go with Mystique, to which Savage quickly lets him know that that's not gonna be a good idea. Even though on Camo's world, Mystique raised Graydon, albeit as a sleeper cell terrorist that blew up the White House. But Camo suits up and enters the portal. Then we transition over to the Exiles team, and if you remember in issue 43, they had made the decision to come after Victor Creed as well, so while Victor is treasure hunting, he's got everybody converging in on him. But on the Exile ship, we see them frantically on the hunt for Saber-Tooth, so much so that they've even brought the young mutants with them that they had been training, since the kids would have been even more afraid if they were left alone thinking that nobody would come back for them. But as we've previously seen, Saber-Tooth would have no problem slaughtering these kids, so they'd be best to keep them out of the mix. Meanwhile, Oya is pissed, and all she could think about is making Saber-Tooth pay for what he did to her friend Quentin. But these guys quickly find out that they won't be able to get into Krakoa as easily as Victor did, as their sentient ship stops short of Krakoa after noticing the Sentinels flying above it. And when the Sentinels detect the Exile ship and begins to head in their direction, the ship notifies the team that they've got no shot at winning this fight. Then we transition back to Victor Creed and Kid Omega's head, and they're now in Forge's lab. When out of nowhere, they're attacked by a giant Krakoan sentry. Of course, Forge would have defenses set up in his lab, and Victor wasn't able to hear it or smell it. But Victor is able to make light work of this sentry despite not being warned by Quentin, which kind of pisses Victor off, so he makes sure to give Quentin a nice little shock as retribution. But Victor is also mad that this isn't a working lab, unlike the vision that Quentin had showed him. But Quentin tells him that there is a lab here. They're just on top of it. The lab is under Krakoa, but it has substantial defenses, so Victor's gonna need his team for this one. So Victor decides to radio the troops for backup, but when we transition back to Orchid Station 5, we can see the troops not responding because Sabotage is waiting for Camo Tooth to arrive back with Gren Creed. And as Sabotage checks on the status of Camo Tooth, we can see that Laura Kinney's jaw looks like it's finally healed from getting ripped off the last time we saw her. But Sabotage also notices when she looks at the map that one of the sentinels flying around Krakoa has ventured off and is on the move. And to where, you guys will see in a minute. But then Camo Tooth finally returns as he comes back flying through the portal holding somebody. He's got him. He's got Gren Creed. At least he thinks he's got Gren Creed, as apparently something is wrong with his face. But we don't yet get to see him. And we then transition back to the Exiles, who are now being pursued by a Stark Sentinel. That's what Sabotage had noticed when she had looked at the map. But Necra comes up with a plan. Since these Stark Sentinels were stationed around Krakoa, that means their mission is to guard Krakoa, Necra thinks. So she's hoping that they're on some type of a leash that only allows them to go so far from the island before being summoned back. So they fly the ship straight up into space with the Sentinel following them until it reaches the end of its leash, when it realizes that it's left a hole in the Krakoan perimeter. Then we see Logan, who's now also converging on this same place, the island of Krakoa. Because if you remember at the end of issue 44, Kid Omega had called out for him. But Logan also realizes that this place is heavily guarded by sentinels. Then he notices that there's one bit of the island that's missing a sentinel, which we know that this is the sentinel that left to go chase the Exiles into space. So Logan targets that section of the island to land. But he then realizes that he acted way too soon as more sentinels detect his arrival and begin to blast at him, blowing up his jet while we get a pretty awesome shot of Logan leaping out of the downed ship. And then as he outruns the blasting sentinels that are coming after him, he makes it into the doorway of the hill to forge his lab that Victor and Quentin had went into just as the doorway crumbles behind him from the sentinel fire. Then we switch back to Victor, who's now pissed that his crew isn't answering to his call. But he doesn't have time to wait or dwell on that. He's got to get down to that base. So as he digs through the rubble, he finds a hatch that must have been what the sentry was guarding, and he assumes that this is how he's going to get down there. But Quentin detects more sentries down there that Sabretooth won't be able to handle on his own. And that's when Victor's nose comes in handy, as he gets a hint of those metal bones coming his way. He smells Logan, and he knows that the run is here now. And Quentin reminds him that Wolverine is out for Victor's blood. He's about to go full-on berserker mode. But this just causes a devilish grin by Victor, who's got a nice idea about what to do next. Then we see Wolverine, who's now followed the scent of Sabretooth and is closing in quickly as he comes to the sentry that Victor destroyed. And then he's immediately hit with a psychic wave from Kid Omega. And now as he ponders what the hell that was, he's called ahead by a voice telling him to come on. And then we see both he and Victor now suited up like they were in their Weapons Plus days, with Victor holding the head of Quentin Quire, who's controlling this false reality. As Victor then tells Logan, "About time you caught up. We're on a mission and there's no time to waste." Yeah, Logan responds. "I'm here, ain't I? Just can't get my head on straight, like I was somewhere else. What's the plan?" "Break in, smash, and grab," replies Victor. And Logan then asks, "What are we grabbing?" "I can't wait for you to find out," says Victor. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the issue. What's up, comic book fans, and welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me, and today we got more Saber-Tooth War with part 6 coming by way of Wolverine issue number 46. And Sabretooth has never really been known much as a mastermind. But in this case, he might have just put together the perfect plan for his revenge tour against Wolverine. And if you guys need to get caught up on this classic 50th anniversary Wolverine event, then I'll place a card at the top of the screen and a link at the end of the video to the Sabretooth War playlist. But if you guys are ready to find out what happened after Sabretooth had the head of Quentin convince Wolverine that they were back in their Team X days, then you guys know what time it is. Let's get it. So we begin this issue right after Wolverine's mind has been taken over by the head of Kid Omega, and he's being forced to see his surroundings through the eyes of his past Team X self. And as we can see that Wolverine is with Sabretooth in Forge's Krakoan lab, but through Wolverine's eyes, he's seeing all of this as a mission with a teammate, and he's getting his latest orders. And when he looks at a hologram of the underwater lab, for Wolverine, it's a pinpointed location in a random jungle, and they've got to get to this weapon before it falls in the wrong hands. Even the Krakoan scuba gear to Wolverine feels like strapping on a parachute. And as Wolverine sees himself diving out of the cargo plane, he and Sabretooth are actually diving underwater to this hidden lab. Meanwhile, as they head down, Kid Omega begins to harass Sabretooth. Because even though you're making Wolverine take the lead and set off any traps, and you know Forge allowed Wolverine's biosignature access to the lab, you're actually feeling nostalgic about this. He's like, oh, were you friends? And Sabretooth's like, if you don't shut up, I'll feed your ass to the sharks. And Quentin's like, I no longer have an ass thanks to you. But I get the picture. But then we transition to the Exiles team, who had arrived at Krakoa in the last issue, but were then chased out into space by a Sentinel. And when we pick up with them, they're attempting to make another run at landing on Krakoa. And despite warnings from the rest of her team, Necra commands the ship to unload its heaviest artillery on the Sentinels, which of course does absolutely nothing. But when the Sentinels fire back, Necra has the ship dive into the water. And it's once they hit the water that Oya gets another vision from Quentin, and now she can see that Sabretooth has also dived into these waters. So she instructs the ship to continue to take them as deep as it can. Then we switch back over to Sabretooth and Wolverine as they continue to cut their way through the lab's defenses. And as they make their way inside, Sabretooth starts trying to get in the head of Wolverine, asking him about the ghosts of the people that he's killed and the ruined lives of the family members, and asking him if he feels messed up inside from all of it. But Wolverine's mind is already filled with the current illusion from Kid Omega, so he really seems to pay Sabretooth no mind with his questioning. As then more sentries begin to awaken and attack Sabretooth and Wolverine. Then we pick back up with the Exiles team as they find a spot to leave their ship and swim the rest of the way. But Necra is a bit skeptical about these visions that Oya is receiving from Quentin, and she wonders if Creed is also getting these same visions and maybe they could be heading into a trap. And like clockwork, they come across the lab's defenses. But Melter remembers that the ship told them that their suits are adaptable. So he activates his powers and he frees himself and the rest of the team. Then we transition over to the Orchid Station 5, the home base of the Sabretooth. Specifically with one of the headless drones as he's bringing food to Laura Kinney while she pretends to sleep in her cell. And just as soon as he gets close enough, Laura puts her claw straight through him and then proceeds to rip him apart. But then two more drones quickly run in to put Laura back down and retrieve their fallen drone, as well as Laura's food, because she's no longer deserving. Gotta get that meal back. But it's cool, because Laura got exactly what she really wanted. That sensor, or hub, or whatever it is from the top of the drone's neck that allows access in and out of the door. Then we go back over to Wolverine and Sabretooth and that sentry that they're still fighting with. And as the sentry grabs Sabretooth by the throat, Wolverine actually saves Sabretooth by cutting off the arm of the sentry. Then Quentin continues to taunt Sabretooth because he was just saved by Wolverine. And it's sad that even though the two of them have pretty much gone through the same things, that Wolverine still turned out good and Sabretooth turned into a lunatic. But then Sabretooth begins to reach for this special gun that he notices. But instead, the gun is picked up by Toad of the Exiles, as he and the rest of the team appear right in front of Sabretooth. But it means nothing to Sabretooth, who straight up lifts up Toad by his arm and then rips off his arm, throwing the rest of Toad back at the Exiles, and then taking the gun from the ripped off arm. And then he calls in Wolverine to join the party. And since Wolverine is still in his trance, all Sabretooth has to do is to tell them that they've got more hostiles. And when Logan turns around, all he sees are just that, hostiles attacking his partner. And then he turns and runs to save his comrade. But Quinn tries to use this chaotic moment to snap Wolverine out of his trance. Though it doesn't take fast enough, as Melter feels the adamantium claws dig straight in from behind, right before he's ripped apart by Logan, who then begins to come to just in time to question what it is that he's just done. And Sabretooth responds by telling him that he's done good. That's what he's done. You got me in here, and you got me Forge's depowering gun. And then he fires the gun at Wolverine, telling him that, and now at long last, you're gonna get dead and stay that way. No more healing factor, runt. You know what that means. You're about to be nothing but a bad memory. And then he lunges at Wolverine, and ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the issue. What's up, comic book fans? And welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me. And today, we got part 7 of the Sabretooth War with Wolverine issue 47. And ladies and gentlemen, this issue is dope. Laura freaking Kinney. That right there is all I'm gonna say about that, cause man, if you guys are behind at any point on this Sabretooth War, then you definitely gonna need to catch up. So first, I'm gonna place a card at the top of the screen for you guys right now. And I'll put a link at the end of this video as well. But this war has been so fun so far. And when we left off with the last issue, Logan had been hit by Sabretooth with Forge's depowering gun, rendering him powerless. And also, Laura Kinney, while being imprisoned by the Sabreteeth, managed to gain one of the control collars from a headless drone. And what in the heck is going on with Gren Creed, who we still haven't gotten a visual on yet? Wink, wink. So if you guys are ready to find out if or how both of our Wolverines, Logan and Laura, get out of their jams, then you guys know exactly what time it is. Let's get it. So this issue picks up on Orchid Station 5, which is currently cloaked in orbit over Krakoa. And Laura Kinney's got that control collar from the drone, and she manages to use it to unlock the holding cell that she's in. And without the slightest hesitation, the chase is on, because she straight books it out of her cell, and she makes her way into a crawl space. But the drones follow her into that crawl space and continue to come after her. So she gets the idea that if she knocks off a few of them, they'll start to jam up this space so the rest can't get through. It'll at least buy her a little bit more time, so that's exactly what she does. Meanwhile, back in Forge's lab underneath Krakoa, Sabretooth is taking it to Logan. He's savoring this moment and enjoying every second of it. Now that Logan's been hit with that depowering gun, this might be the last time he gets to enjoy this dance, Sabretooth thinks to himself. He'd never met anyone to push him like the Runt did. Sabretooth wants him dead, and he never wants the fun to end all at the same time. Can't live with him, can't live without him. But Wolverine still has some fight left in him, and he digs those claws of his deep into the back of Sabretooth. Then we pick up with the Exiles team as they stand over their fallen soldiers, Melter and Toad. And now Necra is pissed. It was both Sabretooth and Wolverine that did this, she tells the others. Then she pulls out that seed that she got from Cypher and tells them that she wants to plant it at both of their feet and be done with it. But Oya's not ready to go there yet. She knows that Logan was under Sabretooth's control. He never would have killed Melter otherwise. But Necra doesn't care anymore. I told y'all, she's pissed. She'd been holding on to that seed ever since Cypher had sent them after Creed. and she's finally ready to finish this. Meanwhile, as Sabretooth and Wolverine are having their brawl, Sabretooth fills Logan in that he has another trick up his sleeve. And then he tells Quentin that he's up. And at that same time, back at the greenhouse, Phoebe is awakened by Quentin telepathically, who reveals himself. But then she freaks out when she sees that he's only a head. But then she tells him that Wolverine had went after him. But Quentin is obviously aware of that, and he lets Phoebe know that that part's not going so well. So she tells him that she'll rally the team, but he lets her know that they'll be gone soon. Right after what, Phoebe asks. And Quentin tells her that Sabretooth is about to make him kill Logan. One shot, brain death. He can't make you do anything, Quentin, Phoebe tells him. But he replies, you're wrong. He can. He's got what's left of me hooked into a controller, Orcus tech. But Phoebe tells him to keep his mind open to her. That's how they'll track him, wherever he is. They will follow. Just try to resist. But it's too late, Quentin reveals, as we then see Sabretooth holding the controller with the head of Quentin that is now converted into a gigantic blaster. And Quentin repeats over and over again that he's sorry, he's sorry, he's sorry, and then fires a huge shot at the head of Logan. And now Logan is down. But Sabretooth can smell him. He knows Logan ain't dead. He can hear his shallow breaths. Putting you down like this was not what I had in mind, Sabretooth tells an unconscious Logan. I wanted you kicking and screaming. I wanted you raw and rough. But just then Necra rolls up and tells Creed that she's got something for him. Hey, she screams as she clocks Sabretooth in the face. Then she tells him that when he took down Melter and Toad, she lost a step because she cared about them. She was too busy feeling worried for them. Her hate was diluted by her worry. Then she looks over to the head of Quentin Quire and tells him that he looks like he doesn't want to keep serving Sabretooth. So don't. And Quentin admits that it no longer matters what happens to him. Sabretooth has already forced him to do the worst. And then Quentin manifests a set of Wolverine claws and drives them through the back of Sabretooth. And man, Sabretooth's back has been through hell in this issue with these damn claws. But as Sabretooth begins to writhe in pain from it, he tells Quentin that he's gonna melt him down like scrap metal as soon as he gets up from this. And that's when Necra replies, let's make sure you never do then. And then she spikes down the seed, and once it hits the ground, it begins to sprout a giant Venus flytrap type of plant that begins to wrap up and swallow Sabretooth. And as he screams no, it snaps shut. Then she asks Quentin if he wants to come with them. But he lets her know that he's got his team, and they're gonna come looking for him. Besides, he tells her, Forge's lab holds so many secrets. Some that destroy, but maybe some that restore. Plus, he wants to stay and enjoy the show for a while with Sabretooth in this plant. Then we go back to Orchid Station 5, and we finally get that Gren Creed reveal, as Camo 2 tells him to get on his feet. And then we see Creed with some changes to his look. And he tells Camo and Savage too that he didn't even recognize the name Gren Creed anymore. It'd been so long, he had to repurpose his suit in order to survive. He had to become someone new, something new. Then what do we call you, Savage Tooth asks. Well, I'm the child of Sabretooth and Mystique, he responds. What else could I turn out to be? I'm the bad seed. We sought you out because we have a common enemy, Camo tells him. But first, we have to know if you can be trusted to do the job. And Bad Seed's response is that the first chance he gets, he'll cut down each of these Sabretooths, which for them passes the test. Then Graydon continues, I brought so many of your brothers and sisters through this doorway. As soon as most stepped through, I put them down. I severed their heads and turned them into something more useful, my army. Then he asks what they've done with his toys. He's hoping that they didn't do something crazy, like give them a proper burial. Are they still on the ship, he asks. But no response is needed because now he can feel them, even though not as many now. He's reestablished his link with the ones closest to him. He'll need to reach the control room to take over the rest of them. But then Savage Tooth gets word of trouble and she excuses herself from this reunion. We've got some vermin in the house, she tells them. Meanwhile, we pick back up with Laura and she's wiped out a bunch of those drones. Then she realizes that if something is sending a signal to these collars, then that should mean there's a transmitter. And as she gets closer to the transmitter, she can hear the change in the frequency of the radio waves. Then she thinks to herself that she'd hate to think Logan might have come to help her and got pulled into this chaos, as she wonders if he got to open his present. Then she finds what she's looking for and thinks that maybe she can send a distress call to the rest of the team, and she cuts her way through. And when she gets through, she's met with a surprise greeting from Sabotage, and now the fight that's been building all throughout this war is finally on, as Laura lunges down from the crawl space right at Sabotage, and she tells her that when she tore out her tongue, it took a while to heal, but now I'm gonna tear out your heart. And then Laura begins to officially whoop the ass of Sabotage. She slashes her face, she stabs her in the stomach, and she slices off a hand. Laura is in absolute beast mode right now, but Savage manages to get in a couple of licks as she knocks Laura off of her with an uppercut. Then she stomps on Laura's head. All the while Laura is scouting the room for the transmitter she was looking for, and then she lays eyes on it. If she destroys it, there'll be a lot less enemies to fight. So she decides to finish this fight. And told you, she says to Sabotage, as she cuts Sabotage in half and tears out her heart just as she'd predicted. And then throws the heart of Sabotage at the transmitter to shut it down, which it does. Cold-blooded move right there by Laura. Them some MVP type moves right there. But then we pick back up with the remaining Exiles team members as they run to escape the lab. And Necra's managed to scoop up Laura and carry him along with them as Oya contacts the ship for extraction. Then back on Orchid Station 5, Laura sends a signal to X-Force so they can find her, and then they'll be able to find the old man, Wolverine. But just as she sends that signal, Gren Creed, aka Bad Seed, walks in with Camo and the rest of the headless drones. Well, there you are, he says to Laura. But she replies to him, bad news for you. My team will be here in no time. But this news pleases Graydon, because that's exactly what he wanted. Meanwhile, aboard the Exiles sentient ship, Logan wakes up screaming before he realizes where he is. But Oya is at his side to calm him back down. The kid blasted me, he tells Oya. But funny thing, I think he was supposed to kill me. But he loved you too much to do that, Oya tells Logan. Then he tells her that there's more Sabretooth out there. He can't leave them to hurt other people. But she tells Logan that he can't go back like this. He's got no powers now, and Logan agrees. He can't go like this. So he's gonna need a new suit and a weapon. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of this issue. What's up, comic book fans? And welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ what they call me. And today, we got part 8 of the Sabretooth War with Wolverine number 48. And ladies and gentlemen, this war so far has been absolutely brutal in all the best ways. And at the very end of this issue, we get a nice little surprise that will answer a question that a lot of you guys have been asking. But Sabretooth is taking away people that Logan cares about in this series and going after his revenge. Though now he's not the only concern for Logan. And if you guys need to get caught up with this series, then I'll place a card at the top of the screen right now and the link at the end of the video. But now Gren Creed is back in the foray, and he shows himself here to be a complete hoss. Plus, in the issue before last, Logan was hit by a depowering gun from Forge's lab and is now without his healing ability. And Victor Creed was swallowed by a plant that spawned from a seed dropped by Necra from the Exiles. And last but not least, Laura Kinney had just ended Sabotage, but then came face to face with Graydon and his army of headless drones. So if you guys are ready to find out how Logan can get back into this fight without his healing ability, if Laura can survive this run-in with Gren Creed, and if we've seen the last of Victor Creed, then you guys know what time it is. Let's get it. So this issue kicks off with both Logan and Victor, but we get individual perspectives from each one on how they see their current situation. Logan from a bed on the Exiles ship out on the North Pacific, and Victor from inside of that giant plant inside Forge's secret lab deep beneath Krakoa. For Logan, though, as he lays in the bed, he thinks about how his mind has always been fueled by rage. But when he had gotten hit by that psionic bolt into his brain by Kid Omega last issue, he feels like something has shifted for him. He's lived more than 100 years and has been a witness and a participant in a whole lot of suffering. But there's also been some good as well, and sometimes he forgets about that, which he shouldn't, because it's the good and beautiful that he should be fighting for, more so than the bad and ugly. Now for Victor, as he lay in the plant, he thinks that he's been killing it. He was winning at this game, but now everything's gone dark and he's a prisoner once again. Story of his life, but he's sick of it. Back with Logan, though, he continues to think that he spent most of his life trying to be alone because he didn't want others getting hurt. But something or someone always pulls him back. And he feels that he's better off in their company, even if they're not better off than he is. But the risk always feels worth it. Then Logan begins to sit up in the bed as Oya asks him how he's feeling. And he tells her that before, he knew there was something worth killing for. But now, he's remembering that there's something worth fighting for. Back on the Orchid Station, though, with Laura Kinney, she tells Gren Creed, aka Bad Seed, as he and his headless drones approach, that she's called in X-Force and they're on the way. But Gren's like, what makes you think you'll live long enough for them to rescue you? But Laura also disabled the cloaking mechanism, and now they're seconds away from being attacked by the Stark Sentinels. She figured she'd even the odds. And as she opens up the hatch and dives out the station, she tells Graydon that all she's got to do is outlast him, as he looks out the hatch and is now approached by a horde of Stark Sentinels. Then back with Logan, as the Exiles ship arrives off the coast of Alaska, Necra is wondering why they've agreed to come out to the middle of nowhere. But Logan tells her that he could really use the help, and he believes they can use his. Although Creed is off the table, they still got a whole army of Sabretooth to take down. But Necra thinks that since they've lost the head of their snake, they might just tuck and run. Because remember, these guys have no idea about Graydon yet. He was brought back by the Sabretooth without anybody knowing, not even Victor. So Oya asks Third Eye to see what he can sense with the Sabretooth. But when he does, his nose starts to bleed and he's hit with some nasty psychic feedback that knocks him off his feet. And then he gets up with a terrified look on his face, and he tells the team that although Victor might be gone, something worse has replaced him. Meanwhile, back at the Orchid Station, amongst the Sentinel attack on the base, Graydon straight up leaps off the station, falling towards the attacking Sentinels, all while Camo Tooth is back on the base trying to warn Graydon of the power of the Stark Sentinels. But Graydon tells Camo not to worry about him. Worry about the station. Nothing on Earth might be able to beat these Sentinels. But I ain't from here anymore, he says. And then he uses some of his extra dimensional tech on the Sentinels as he starts to remove the wiring from the back of one of the Sentinels' heads. But Camo, though, is in some serious trouble as the base is still under attack by the rest of the Sentinels. And one more energy blast and this station is going into the ocean, Camo says. But just before that final shot can be blasted by the Sentinel directly in front of the ship, his head is blasted clean off as Graydon is now taking control of one of the Sentinels. Mastering Orchid's tech is about as hard as learning the alphabet song, he says. And now Graydon is using his Sentinel to wipe out the rest of the Sentinels. If the mutants thought Victor Creed was the king of hell, wait until they get a load of me, Graydon boasts. Meanwhile, as Laura lay on the ground of Krakoa, recovering from that fall that she just took, she looks above and she sees what Graydon is doing, and now she's like, are we screwed? We might be screwed. But back with Logan and the Exiles, though, as they now travel by foot to their destination, Logan tells them that when he was on Krakoa, he had some gates planted, just for him. And one of them led here to this location. There's a bunker at the center of this island, but this place is more than isolated. It's also dangerous as hell. Necra, though, is continuing to be a cynic, and right now she's just freezing her ass off and wondering why the hell they even need Wolverine. Without his healing factor, he's useless. Wolverine, meanwhile, double checks with Oya that Necra's powers activate by her getting angry, right? Yeah, that's right, Oya confirms. So Logan's like, good, because we're gonna need them as they cross paths with a 3-pack of huge bears. But Logan tells the group not to kill the bears. We're the invaders here, he says. The bears ain't did nothing wrong. So the group does their best to fight off these bears without killing them. And after they've successfully taken them all down, Wolverine has Oya to use her powers to heat the snow, revealing a door. And Logan tells him that he had asked Forge to build him something. Something that anticipated a day like this would come. A moment when all was lost, including my powers, as he unlocks the door to this bunker. Back at the greenhouse base though, X-Force has received Laura's SOS and her coordinates. And they realize that the coordinates are to Krakoa. So Sage has X-Force suit up. Laura needs them now. But Tom reminds Sage that they're without the Bluebird right now since Logan ran off in it. But Sage turns to Tom and tells him that he knows what they need him to do. And Tom insists that it's not that easy. But Sage tells him that he's got no choice, and then he begins to use his powers to build them a whole ship. Phoebe, meanwhile, receives a psychic message from Quentin. Phoebe, you need to hurry, Quentin, please. I can sense the firefight above the island is going the wrong way. I can sense that Laura is in grave danger. But that's not our only problem. As he notices Victor Creed's arm starting to break through the giant plant. Back on the secret bunker with Logan and the Exiles though. The Exiles are impressed, including Necro. As Logan reemerges from the bunker now in full adamantium armor and a Muramasa blade. And as he now tells the group, let's go find a fight. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the issue. What's up, comic book fans? And welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me. And today, we got more Sabertooth War. This time with Wolverine issue 49. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the penultimate part 9 of this 10-part Sabertooth War. So this thing is quickly coming to an end. And if you guys need to get caught up with this war, then I'll place a card at the top of the screen for you right now. And I'll put a link at the end of the video as well. But this issue is pretty cool, and it sets up what will most likely be an incredibly huge and explosive finale to this war and this Benjamin Percy Wolverine series run. And when we left off with the previous issue, Gren Creed was showcasing a display of dominance against the Sentinels. Victor Creed was making his way out of that plant prison, and Logan had just donned a full adamantium armor since his healing factor had gotten taken away. So if you guys are ready to see what happens as all these entities start to converge on one another, then you guys know what time it is. Let's get it. So we start this issue with a look in of Victor Creed's current prison, right after things had gone south for him. And in it, he's inside of an Iron Maiden torture device that's housed inside of a therapist's office. And in walks Doug Ramsey, who had been expecting Creed's arrival. But then he lets Creed know that he's not really Doug Ramsey, just more of an imprint of him programmed into the seed that trapped him. His belief in fairness and his deep reserves of hope, the program says. But Sabertooth wants no parts of either of those. He just wants to wrap his hands around Doug Ramsey's neck. And he breaks free of the Iron Maiden and he lunges at the Ramsey program. But it's a program. So, yeah. But then Creed is transported to a mountain, and knowing that he was just inside of a therapist's office, and now a mountain, he quickly deduces that none of this is real. This was just like back in the pit. He was living in a simulated world while his body was trapped. But he got out of that jam, so he can get out of this jam, he thinks. He just gotta find Ramsey again. Maybe he can get him talking and figure out the magic words that get him out of here. But then he hears what sounds like a branch snap in the background, and he thinks that maybe someone could be following him. But when he turns back, he sees nothing. And for some reason, his heart is racing right now, and he's got no idea why, since he knows this isn't real. Kind of like his body still believes it. So he walks inside of a cabin to gather himself, and he sees a couple of rifles on the wall, so he thinks that maybe getting his hands on one will calm him from shaking. But when he removes his glove, he notices that this isn't his hand. What the hell? Whose body am I in? He thinks. And then there's a knock at the door, and he recognizes the voice of the visitor. And then the door bursts open, revealing that the visitor is none other than himself. And when he looks in the mirror, he realizes that he's reliving the memories through the eyes of his victims. And this particular victim he had taken his time with, so she had taken his eye with that rifle. Then we pick up above Krakoa, specifically with Camo Tooth and Bad Seed Gren Creed, and he's still manning that Stark Sentinel. And Camo Tooth checks on Graydon to see if he's hurt, but Graydon is cool, and honestly, he's more disgusted at the sound of panic in Camo's voice. But they notice that more Sentinels are on approach, so Camo replies that it looks like they're the last one standing. But Graydon notes that his father is still unaccounted for. So then Camo goes on to tell Graydon that his father had the same obsession with Wolverine, and he couldn't let it go, just like Graydon can't let go of this one. But this just pisses off Graydon even more, because Victor is his own father and he abandoned and tried to kill Graydon. And as a matter of fact, you're just another version of him from another dimension, Graydon says to Camo, as his face turns into a searing look of death. He then fires on the Orchid ship with Camo in it and incinerates him. Then as the other Sentinels approach, Graydon knows that he can't continue to use this Sentinel to fight against them because he can feel its security protocols already starting to override his control. So somehow he's able to shape a shield for himself. I'm not quite sure exactly how his power works now, but he's able to shield himself and use his Sentinel as a suicide bomber for the rest of the Sentinels, blowing them up as Laura Kinney still watches from the ground and now has to turn and run from the fallen debris. And to her joy, she notices the arrival of her X-Force team. But then we switch back to Victor as he experiences another memory from another victim. But this time, the Ramsey program is back, and Ramsey wonders if Victor is having fun living the life of his victims and seeing things from their perspectives. He asks if this victim's particular role was to be a punching bag, but her job was using her psychic powers to quiet the demons in Victor's head, he tells Ramsey. Then Ramsey tells him that this seed can only access the memories he holds on to, and they're not happy memories, so maybe he holds them for another reason. Maybe he feels guilty, as he's then given a glimpse of even more of his victims. And then they're transported back to the therapist's office. But this time, instead of the Iron Maiden, Victor is lying on a couch. And Ramsey tells him what he believes, that all of us have the capacity to be good. In fact, you yourself were good. For quite a while, you were a hero. Do you remember? So Victor's like, oh, okay, I get it now. This seed wasn't meant to be a trap or a punishment. And Doug replies, no. He'd hoped that if Victor experienced what he's done to his victims, if he lived in their skin, it would shake free the best part of him. He wouldn't have done those things if Victor knew what he was putting others through. But Victor gives the most sarcastic and expected Sabretooth response here when he replies, sorry, but do you know who I am? Meanwhile, back above Krakoa, the Exile ship is now on approach. And Logan notes that he came to fight the entire Sabretooth army, but now it looks like there's only one of them left and he's down in the water. And Oya wants to join him in the fight, but Logan lets her know that this ain't her fight. And what she and her team have here on this ship, well, that's the whole Krakoan dream right there. So he wants her to take her team out of here. This is his stop. And then he leaps off of the ship with his Miramasa blade in hand. And we see that the one in the water he was talking about is Gren Creed. And Gren Creed welcomes this challenge. Come down here, mutant. Let me show you what I can do, he tells Logan. And Logan responds that he came here to stop Sabretooth's army. But Gren has already done that himself, he tells Logan. He's the last of the Creeds, and now he's gonna do what his father never could. And that's kill Logan. Meanwhile, back inside the seed, Victor is now laughing hysterically at Doug's big heart. You got that big heart, so you assume we all do, he tells him. Can't imagine there's people in the world who are just built different. You think every wounded child just needs a hug and a cookie. That'll make them fit right in. I didn't hold on to those memories because I feel guilty. I hold on to them because they make me proud. You making me relive them has had the opposite effect. It didn't make me sad. It's got my blood flowing. I'm feeling vigorous. And now it's that energy that Victor uses to berserker his way out of that plant. And now it's about to go down. Time to unleash hell, he says, as he swims back up to the top, where we see Logan and Gren Creed now fight with the rest of the X-Force team looking on. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the issue. What's up, comic book fans? And welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they called me. And today, we got the 10th and final part of the Sabertooth War with Wolverine issue 50. And not only is this the finale to the Sabertooth War, but it also marks the end of writer Benjamin Percy's run on Wolverine. So, the next solo Wolverine comic from here will be From the Ashes. And what makes this story a special one is that it brings this bloody rivalry to an even bloodier conclusion. And I feel that it serves as a really nice tribute to 50 years of Wolverine. And although I unfortunately don't have any other videos for the full Benjamin Percy run, I do, however, have the complete Sabertooth War. And if you guys missed any parts of it, then I'll put a card at the top of your screen to it so you guys can get caught up. And I'll place a link at the end of the video as well. But when we last left off with this series, Wolverine had donned a new adamantium armor that had been created for him by Forge and stashed away for a rainy day, so to speak. In addition to that, Sabertooth had broken free of the prison that he had been trapped in and left for dead, just as Wolverine was engaged in a battle against Sabertooth's son, Graydon, right in front of Wolverine's X-Force teammates, who had arrived there in response to a Laura Kinney distress call for rescue. And all of this happens right on the abandoned island of Krakoa. So if you guys are ready to see how this explosive finale to this brutal war concludes, after everyone is finally converged on one another, after so much bloodshed, and all with a huge axe to grind with one Victor Creed, and you guys know what time it is. Let's get it. So this issue starts off directly where the last one ended, and Logan is one-on-one with Gren Creed. But Logan doesn't directly attack Graydon. He tries to offer him a reprieve, for him not to be like his father and make the same choices out of hate. But Graydon responds pretty much like you'd expect him to and throws back at Wolverine the lives of his own children that he's missed, while he's out here trying to play good dad to Graydon. And in that, Graydon is right. Logan too can be seen as deadbeat dad of the century. He's missed a lot. But Graydon still has time. He's still alive right now and can change for the better. But Graydon has heard just about enough. Y'all know how he feels about weakness. And then he manages to re-stitch together all of the fallen Stark Sentinels into his own creations and reanimates them. And how he's able to do that, I'm not even gonna lie to y'all right now, I don't know. I don't think that they've really done a good job of explaining the powers of Graydon, but if you guys know, then I'm all ears. But he reanimates these destroyed Sentinels, and now they begin to attack the rest of the X-Force team, so Graydon can focus on his one-on-one with Logan. And if that's the way the kid wants it, then that's the way it's gonna be. But Logan isn't gonna take any pleasure in bringing him down, he tells Graydon. And although the nickname Bad Seed is a pretty terrible one, all of these new powers and the post-apocalyptic look of Graydon it's got some potential, y'all. But unfortunately, we probably will never get a chance to see it as Victor Creed comes up from behind and rips out his own son's heart from behind. Just simply brutal and befitting of a Sabertooth War finale. That's who Victor Creed is. A dirty, rotten, evil son of a bitch. And then as Graydon takes his last breath, he gives his kind of an X-Men version of a Shakespeare line or something with, "There's no justice in this world." And then he's gone. It's kind of like a, "And now I die." But now Logan sees red and he immediately starts swinging his sword at Sabertooth. And here's where we first see what looks to be some sort of a battery level indicator, and it's reading that he's at 89%. So it kind of puts us in the mindset that this suit is maybe mechanical, which would kind of explain how he's able to move around in it so well, maybe, despite all of the weight. But you guys keep an eye on that indicator. It's kind of a big deal, and some of y'all will like it when you see it, and some of y'all will absolutely hate it. And I'm going to hear from y'all, all of y'all. But we'll talk about that when we get there. Meanwhile, though, Sabretooth relishes in this moment. Special swords and special armor for somebody without powers. But Logan doesn't care. He doesn't need his powers to beat Creed, and he tells him that he's gonna send him to join his son where he belongs. Meanwhile, though, as the Exiles have decided to stick around after seeing Graydon reanimate the Sentinels, now they're helping take out these zombie Sentinels. And after witnessing Sabretooth just wipe out his own son, they're thankful to no longer be teamed up with him. And then we see the X-Force team also engaged in a battle with the Sentinels, as Sage calculates that normally they'd have no chance of winning this fight. But since their tech and armor is so badly compromised, they've got a chance here. Meanwhile, though, Phoebe is able to pick up on the psychic calls of Kid Omega, whose head is still beneath the island. But as we pick back up with Sabretooth and Wolverine, we see that indicator or status bar, whatever it is, has gone up, this time to 94%. And Wolverine is getting in some good hits right now on Sabretooth. He's really kind of kicking his ass. But Sabretooth then decides to move this fight away from all of Wolverine's friends on the beach, where he can get Logan all to himself. And then he lures Logan through a tunnel that seems unfamiliar to Logan, leading him to the Quiet Council, to the spot where Sabretooth got dragged down into the pit. Because the thing is, when Sabretooth was in the pit, he ended up growing real close with this part of the island. And the moment he came back, he could feel his connection once again. And this is where the connection is the strongest. And then Sabretooth has the island itself begin to wrap up Logan and then drag him down into the pit. And as he goes down, we're shown that indicator once again. This time at full bars and reading 97%. But then as Wolverine is pulled down and Sabretooth takes that trip down there with Logan, this is the moment that Sabretooth had been waiting for as the pit closes. And then inside of the pit, as Logan is pulled further down, the vines begin to peel Logan out of his armor like it was nothing. Like a peanut shell. It was a good look while it lasted, but it scraps now. But then Logan begins to get attacked and tormented by plant versions of people from his past. And as he fights through all of the false entities that include Jean Grey and his son, Dakin, the real Sabretooth joins in on the attack. And as he slashes at Logan, he tells him of how better off the world would be without him in it, since all he does is cause pain. And then as he gets ready to strike a killing blow on Logan, Sabretooth's arm is caught by the vines that he was just controlling. And then he and Logan are both pulled back up to the top. And as a confused Sabretooth gets back up there, he's met with the combined X-Force and Exile team, telling him that he's finished. Phoebe had persuaded Krakoa to sever his connection, and it was more than eager to do so. Sabretooth had begun this war with an army of his own, but now he faces an army on his own. You're gonna die miserably and pathetically alone, Phoebe savagely tells Creed. But Wolverine holds her back. This war started between the two of them, and that's how it's gonna end. But Laura can't understand how Logan's even standing right now after all of these gone through without his powers. But that's when Logan reveals that Forge's armor wasn't meant just to protect him. It was also meant to reactivate his mutant gene, bringing his powers back. That's when it's revealed that the indicator now reads 100%. The suit had been reactivating his mutant gene and kickstarting his powers back up the whole time. So that mystery invention that was hinted at back in X-Force 25 is finally revealed. He built Wolverine literal plot armor. So I definitely want to hear how you guys felt about that. That was the moment that I was referring to earlier. But then Logan throws a taunt at Sabretooth because he's about to get Logan at full strength now, so it's on. And now these two beasts engage in the most brutal battle ever that has Logan manage to cut off one of Sabretooth's arms. and then slices him up real good. Then he drives that blade right into the stomach of Sabretooth. But that ain't enough to put down Sabretooth, who manages to fight Logan back and then pull the blade out of his stomach, and then he charges at Logan with that blade. But Logan just pops another set of claws, and then he cuts off the hand of Sabretooth with that blade. And then Logan picks that blade back up, and he takes out all the frustrations and pain caused by Sabretooth. This is for my son, he thinks, as he takes a swipe. This is for my friends, as he takes more swipes. This is for Krakoa, and then more swipes. This is for his failure to know what to do with the pain inside him except share it with others, as he takes even more swipes. And now, with nothing left to swipe at, we see Logan standing over the now many pieces of Sabretooth. He did Creed like Creed did Dakin. Damn. It's kind of poetic. But then later on, we get a sentimental moment between Phoebe and Quentin, as he tells her that it's time to shut him down. But then he tells her that there will be other lives than these, as she shuts down the box that was keeping him alive. But then Logan thinks to himself that Quentin was right. It was a time to come together and a time to say goodbye. So they bid farewell to the Exiles, who wanted to continue to explore the horizon. And it was time for them to once again say goodbye to Krakoa, since Orcus made it clear that it would never be home again. But the thing that Logan has learned about happiness is that he used to think that all of the bad stuff made happiness impossible. But Krakoa taught him it was possible. And when he's lost in a moment of grief or despair, he's got the wisdom of previous joy now to fall back on. Victor Creed never managed to find that, and he was always angry and seeing red because of it. But when Logan finds himself there now, when the blood and pain come as they always do, he'll remember that era on Krakoa, where they were all together, as one of the happiest of his life. And that, my friends, is the end of the issue, the war, and the series. So what did you guys think about this Sabretooth War and this finale? Yeah, how have you guys liked this Benjamin Percy Wolverine run as a whole? I really enjoyed bringing you guys this Sabretooth War. This was an amazing moment for me that allowed a couple of the characters that I grew up watching fight each other have a battle that I will remember forever. To see Sabretooth back to his vicious self, and to see Logan cut him down in the end in the manner that Sabretooth had cut down Wolverine's own son. And then to see Sabretooth put his arm through the chest of his own son. Savage. But did you guys feel like Wolverine was done justice here in this 50th anniversary moment with his 50th and final issue of this run? I want to hear all you guys' thoughts about that, and what will you remember most from this Benjamin Percy run? And as always, if you guys enjoyed this video and this channel, and you'd like to support the channel, then you could do so by stopping by the Comics Icon store and picking you up some of this merchandise, including the background music heard right here in this video available for download. Or by joining the Iconic Fan Club channel membership, and it'll be a link in the description for the membership and the music download. But with your membership, your voice will be heard during our interactive live streams with yours truly, where we get down and talk about everything that's been going down in these issues, as well as ones that you'd like for me to go over in the future and other comic book news. Plus, you guys will get loyalty badges, member shoutouts, and up to 20% off of Comics Icon's merchandise from the Comics Icon store. And now we've got new tiers to the memberships as well, starting at just 99 cents. Or you guys can donate to the channel with a super thanks. And if you're not able to do any of those, then you can still be a tremendous help to the future of this channel. Do not despair. By dropping a like, share, and subscribe in the Comics Icons for more icons in the comic book world. But ladies and gentlemen, it's about that time.